I studied Mandarin for 10 hours. I'm going to go over exactly what I did, my thoughts on the methods that I used, and of course, I'm going to demonstrate my abilities. Okay, so here's my 10-hour Mandarin report. Here's my time spent. Okay, so I did about 5 hours worth of Pimsleur lessons, which, if you don't know, Pimsleur is basically just a mobile app where they give you listen and repeat drills. So they'll put you in a scenario like, oh, ask the woman how you can order tea, right? And then you'll say whatever you think it is, and then they'll give you the correct pronunciation with a native saying it. Okay, so basically just listening and repeating to native speakers, but it's in a curated way, and they incorporate spaced repetition so that you don't forget vocabulary, etc., etc. So it's pretty good. I'll go over my thoughts on that in more depth in a bit. Chorusing is a technique where basically I find a YouTube video. For me, I linked the video in the last video that I recorded, but it was basically just like a 10-minute video of a native speaker going over like the top 10 or something like that phrases in Mandarin for travelers. And so I listened to that video, and then anytime she said a phrase, I would listen to what she said and repeat it. And then sometimes what I would even do is I would record the audio, put it in a program, and I would loop it, and I would try to say it at the exact same time as her with the exact same tones, exact same pronunciation, etc., to try to really bake in the pronunciation and things like that. So I did that for a total of 3 hours and 20 minutes. I did isolated tone training for an hour on the website that I showed in the last video. Last video is going to be linked in the description if you want to watch that one first before watching this one, but otherwise it's fine. Number training I did for about 40 minutes with the software that I showed in the last video. And so overall it was 10 hours. I was really accurate. Like I even set timers and everything. So yeah, this is pretty close to exactly 10 hours. And I even included the time that it took for me to like find videos and resources and things like that. So this is exactly 10 hours spent with Mandarin. I have the exact breakdown of everything I did by activity and even kind of like time of day if you really care about that. But otherwise we can just skip that. So my thoughts on Mandarin so far. First off, the tones be tripping. All right, so Vietnamese tones at first weren't that hard for me because I didn't even think about them. I kind of just allowed them to exist in the background. And so when I finally was ready to take it really seriously, I already had hundreds of hours of listening immersion under my belt. And I was kind of able to use that as a scaffold of whenever I would say a word with the wrong tone, I would know that it was the wrong tone and correct myself, right? So ideally, I would have been good enough to not use a ton of wrong tones in the first place. But because I had that background and foundation of input, I was able to learn and correct myself. Here, I have no foundation and I'm really focusing on tones right from the beginning. So it really hits, right? It's really hard. What I noticed at first was coming from Vietnamese, the tones are very different from Vietnamese. So it was really awkward for me to try to hear the tones at first. So if I were to say the word like ma in Vietnamese with the neutral tone, it would just be ma, right? That's how you would say it. But in Chinese, it's ma, right? Like it's much higher pitched. Like the neutral tone in Vietnamese is down here and the neutral tone in Chinese is like up here. So you actually have to have a high pitched voice when saying the neutral tone in Chinese. And at first that really messed me up. But over time, I kind of got used to it. I think one big mistake that I made was I didn't immediately look up a chart that showed like the pitches and like what tone of voice that the tones are actually in. I was relying 100% on my ears. And so at first I would think that the neutral tone was the high tone because of my experience in Vietnamese. But overall, once I kind of looked at that chart that showed like the patterns of the tones, everything just kind of clicked. And after a couple more sessions of tone training, I ended up just kind of getting it and then just moving on from there. So at first the tones were a hassle, but now I think I kind of have my head around them. In terms of pronouncing them, I'm obviously not there yet. That takes years, right? But I think overall I'm in a decent position in terms of being able to distinguish them and hear them at least. The sounds are insane. Okay, this is my first time feeling like that. So Vietnamese has a lot of really difficult like vowels where you can't really, it's a very subtle difference. But with Mandarin, it's the consonants. There's like, it's like sh, sh, ch, sir, it's crazy. There's like 50 different consonants that all sound very, very similar. Like I thought that Vietnamese was bad, but Mandarin consonants are like a whole nother level, right? And yeah, like I said, it's my first time feeling like that because with Vietnamese, the sounds, when I was first learning them, I watched a YouTube video that basically treated you like an infant, right? And they basically taught you how to pronounce it wrong for the sake of it being easier to pronounce for like Americans or whatever. And so I watched that video and for months, I basically learned the wrong sound system. But from like a ton of input, I was able to basically realize that I was saying it wrong and then kind of slowly start to correct those habits. But again, just like with the tones, like going from like, I actually know that like there's really important differences, and I knew to find a video that pointed out those differences. But yeah, it's overwhelming. It's a lot, right? And so once I realized the amount of consonants that sound super similar, I was about to go down a rabbit hole where I tried to master them, right? And I really wanted to like actually be able to like easily distinguish these sounds and be able to produce them effortlessly. And I even think it would be fun to grind that, honestly, but I had to hold back and not do it because the entire point of this series of videos is trying to implement the most optimal method to go from absolute zero to being able to use the language in the country, right? Because I'm actually going to Taiwan. And so when I go to Taiwan, spending 10 hours on mastering the difference between these sounds would mean 10 hours less of sentences that I'm able to actually use when I get there. And so I didn't think that the trade-off was there. But if I was to, like, if I was doing this for longevity, like I wasn't just doing this for a 1 month trip, I would totally set aside the time early on, like in the beginning of the language learning journey, to really nail down those sounds and master them. I think that would be probably the best usage of your time possible, right? So this led to me discovering Bopo Mofo, right? I'd heard of this before, but I didn't really know what it was. And so I'm gonna put a picture up on the screen of it now. It's an entire system of writing, like it's an entire alphabet system for like the sounds of Mandarin. And so I put being a nerd here because what I wanted to do was memorize this because it looks so cool. I think it's a really cool script. I'd want to be able to type in it. I even added the keyboard to my phone for a little while and like messing around with it. It looks really cool. It seems like a great way to learn. It seems like I've talked about this before, like pinyin, where you kind of superimpose English sounds onto it. This completely solves that problem. And it would also be a really good way to learn the sounds and be able to test myself because rather than writing with the English script, I could learn Bopomofo and master the sounds at the exact same time, right? So I thought this was really cool, but again, I had to like hold back. And I told myself, if you're optimizing for communication a month from now, learning this is not the best use of your time. So in the future, whenever I decide to like truly learn Mandarin for like longevity and to actually become fluent in it in the future over many years, then I will definitely be memorizing and learning Bopomofo. I'm sure it's not that hard. I'm pretty sure it's like katakana, right? Where you can learn it very quickly. But I would be memorizing that and then really internalizing the sounds and being able to differentiate them and using both of those processes at the same time, I think would be really fun and extremely highly effective, especially something to do right from the gate would be really, really good. Juggling two languages. So I mentioned in my first video that I was going to continue studying Vietnamese. That fell apart. That did not work out. I noticed that when I didn't have that foothold of the thing that I would do with Vietnamese every day was grind it and practice output and all of that stuff and SRS. I fell off of all of that with Vietnamese. And I was using that same hour a day that I had for Vietnamese for my grinding for Mandarin. And I found that like, I don't know, I started thinking to myself all these like negative thoughts of like, what's the point of even getting input if, I'm not grinding? Because I'm at the point now in Vietnamese where if I just watch content, it's very difficult for me to actually like really learn from it because there's just so few words that like the words that I don't know are so rare to the point where it's difficult for me to actually learn from it, right? And so I do gain from it, as I've talked about earlier. Like I gain like my ability to listen increases, et cetera, but that missing piece of grinding sentence frameworks in the morning really just derailed me. And so yeah, juggling two languages it's tough, and this is my first time really experiencing trying to do it. And so yeah, it was an interesting experience. It was a lot more difficult and required a lot more discipline than I thought it'd be. And this is definitely something I want to explore more in the future for another time. So here is my new updated plan. Okay, so I've found that the tone training, I'm able to differentiate the tones in isolation and with the trainer now, right? So now I'm going to use that time to grind the numbers. I want to be able to effortlessly understand and recognize numbers 0 through 10,000. And the reason why is that 100 USD is 3,000 Taiwan dollars. And so if I buy anything like with Taiwan dollars, I want to be able to understand the prices that people are telling me, right? I'm probably not going to spend more than $100 in one given purchase. And so if I can just understand the numbers 1 through 10K instantly, then I can understand any prices that people give me instantly. So that's my intention with grinding the numbers. I'm going to do tutoring sessions instead of Pimsleur. because Pimsleur is kind of getting to this point now where it's kind of telling me things I don't need to know. Like I don't need to be able to talk about like my hotel and talk about what I'm going to do that day, because I'm not really going to like, I'm mainly learning this language for like travel reasons. So I need to learn how to like the most optimal way to interact with waiters and things like that, right? Not like to just have small talk. I'm not really interested in that. So I'm going to work with a tutor. I have my first session with a tutor tomorrow morning. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm basically going to ask her for like very restaurant specific things. Like I don't know how to say like, oh, like when they ask you like, oh, do you need the like for here to go? I don't know how to understand that. I don't know how they would say that to me, and I wouldn't know how to reply. I also wouldn't know like how they would ask me like, oh, how many people like are you sitting? And I wouldn't know how to reply. So things like that I want to be able to get down pat, and the best way would just be to like be with a tutor. Also, I find it really fun to interact with like people that I've never interacted before and like in language learning context and things like that. And it's a very low pressure environment because I do kind of get output anxiety in real life where I feel nervous about talking to people not in English in real life. But with a tutoring session, it's really low stakes. And so I find it fun. But honestly, like everything that I'm doing in this series to optimize my Mandarin learning can be done entirely for free. I'm just paying for Pimsleur and tutoring sessions to optimize it ever so slightly and to save myself time of like finding resources, because I'm just paying for the convenience of them already curating the resources for me. But honestly, if you just do like 30 minutes of like um, chorusing native sentence patterns that you want to be able to say, and maybe another 30 minutes just getting input, watching like people going, like videos of people, like vlogs of Chinese people like going to grocery store or the convenience stores and restaurants and things like that, honestly, you'll be just as good as what I'm doing here. I'm just hyper optimizing for the sake of like entertainment, just to see how good can I really get with a strict 1 hour a day limit. So if you notice back in my thing, I did spend more than an hour a day, a couple of days, but it's been 10 days of me learning and I've done 10 hours. So rather than like a strict hour a day type thing, I'm doing 30 hours, 30 days, right? So theoretically it could be done in an hour a day. All right, I think the only thing left is for me to do an ability demonstration. So let's get into it. So, okay, so I'm gonna kind of throw you into a couple of scenarios. So I want you to imagine that I'm walking into a restaurant with my wife. Okay, my wife is Vietnamese. She doesn't speak a single word of Mandarin, right? Not a thing. And so what I'm assuming, because she's Asian, they're going to try to speak to her in Mandarin, assuming that she can understand. And it's going to be kind of weird because I'm going to be the one speaking Mandarin and she can't speak it. So they're going to try to speak to her. So I'm going to say, 请问, right? To the waitress, 请问. The waitress is going to look at me. I'm going to say, 太太,我太太不会说中文。我太太不会说中文。我会说一点儿。要英文，要英文，在蛋吗？要英文在到吗？Right? And then after that, if like she goes to get the English menu, comes back, and then I'll say 你推荐什么菜? And then she'll say some nonsense to me. I don't even understand it. And then I'll say 我不明白. And then I'll like grab the menu and like kind of like give it to her so she can point out like what she recommends. And then I'll say 好,我想要这个. Okay? Or 我想要那个. All right? And then I'll give her the menu and I'll say 谢谢. And then she's walking away, right? She's like walking away and I'll be like 服务员. And then I'll say 请问服务员? And then she'll turn around and then I'll be like 先消 I forgot how to say where's the bathroom. I know I've of course it, but I just can't think of it in this current moment. I didn't practice before this. I'm just kind of just going off of what I can think of in this moment. So that was the restaurant. I know it's 在哪里 for like where is, but I don't know how to say. I always forget restroom. It's like hard. I'll remember it another day. All right. And then let's just assume I'm at like some kind of like shop and it's like some kind of open market and they're selling like little trinkets, right? and I'll say, I'll pick one up and I'll say, 这个多少钱? And then the guy will give me some price and it's going to be too high because I'm American. And then I'm going to be like, 太贵了. 你能便宜一点吗? And then he's going to give me like a better price, hopefully. And then I'll say, 谢谢你. And I'll say, I learned how to say ask for card, like if a card works, but I forgot. So that's kind of like my current abilities. I can say like, excuse me. I can kind of like order, ask for the waitress's recommendation, ask for an English menu, explain to them that like my wife doesn't speak Mandarin, but I speak a little bit, things like that. I do know more than I'm like able to say right now. That's just because I'm like I don't want to spend 10 minutes of thinking up like a script right now, right? I just kind of want to just, whatever I can vomit out in this current moment is what I'm going to just say. So that's my speaking ability currently. I can say more. I'm not thinking of it. Numbers. I'm gonna try to count from 1 to 10. All right. After 40 minutes of number practice, jeez Louise. Not gonna lie, I was kind of also using the number practice as more tone practice because I don't know. I just was. Okay. So let's go. 一二三 Sure. I think that's right. 五六七八. Ba is hard because ba and three is in Vietnamese it's three. So that's why it messes me up. Yo. I think. Yo. I don't remember. And then 10 is she, I think. I don't know, dude. Something like that. Those are like the numbers. I'm still working on it. But yeah, those are my current abilities in Mandarin. I gave my future what I'm gonna do. So yeah, I'll see you in another week or so with another update on my Mandarin, and we'll see how close I get to being able to interact with Taiwan. And I'm especially excited to present my results after a couple tutoring sessions. I think that's going to be really interesting. All right, see you guys. Thank you.